Taiwan's army is showcasing some of its most advanced systems, and I'm here to take a sneak peek.
Things are heating up on Taiwan's National Disaster Preparedness Day.
We take a look at how dementia is affecting Taiwan's aging population. Plus, how a homegrown startup is fighting million-dollar digital fraud. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Kavat. The military is getting ready to open one of its largest army bases to the public. While much of the equipment is from the US, the event aims to showcase how modern Taiwan's military is. Our reporter Jaime Ocon was there to take a closer look.
Special Forces soldiers making the difficult look easy. This is just one of a handful of shows that are being rehearsed to mark the Taiwanese Army's first open house in 9 years. On September 24, civilians will get a chance to check out some of the military equipment on display at one of the country's largest bases.
静态装备成长，我们主要将国军现在现役的精锐的武器装备陈列在国人面前。我们大家都知道，面对中共的威胁，我们国军已经随时好备战。
For decades, Taiwan has dealt with threats and coercion from China, and it's been pushing to modernize its military in an effort to create a more robust defense. And this open house is a way to demonstrate to the public that the military can handle such challenges. These U.S. Apache helicopters were center stage, and people here were given a demonstration of their power. The aircraft are also meant to serve as a symbol of Washington's commitment to help Taiwan defend itself. The U.S. is Taiwan's largest provider of weapons and military equipment, from things like artillery to anti-air systems and even fighter jets. But weapons can only go so far, and analysts are pushing for Taiwan and the U.S. to step up military exchanges, as that would give Taiwan a boost in its self-defense capabilities. In fact, one of 2 battalions that could be sent to the U.S. for joint training is stationed here at this base. And there are plans to send almost 600 soldiers by 2025.
The U.S. National Guard, in particular, training Taiwanese forces, U.S. Special Forces training Taiwanese forces, all of that is absolutely essential to the defense of Taiwan.
Taiwan and the United States do not conduct official military exchanges, but the U.S. is mandated by law to provide equipment and weapons to help the country defend itself. The U.S. has always had a significant say in how Taiwan should develop its defense strategy. And with deeper cooperation expected, Taiwan's armed forces are set to learn even more about how to ensure the nation's security.
It's one thing for people, say, policymakers in the United States to tell Taiwan, you should follow this particular military strategy. It's another thing entirely when the U.S. is putting skin in the game and saying, not only should you do this, we'll also give you the tools in order to actually implement that kind of strategy.
As military officials here get ready for the open house, they hope the event will be an opportunity to show off its efforts at modernization and demonstrate that it's looking for the best ways to defend the country against any threat. John Su and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has added 2 new ships to its growing number of Coast Guard vessels. Rick Lowett reports.
Here at one of the largest ports on Taiwan's north coast, the country's Coast Guard is launching 2 new domestically produced Coast Guard vessels as it beefs up its fleet in response to the China threat. Taiwan is adding more than 100 new vessels to its Coast Guard fleet over the next few years. It's part of defense reforms aimed to counter China, which says Taiwan is part of its territory. These vessels will be tasked with responding to what's called China's grey zone warfare tactics. They'll be confronting fishing vessels and sand dredgers that are increasingly operating illegally in Taiwan's waters. So Taiwan has shown its determination to defend its freedom with record defense spending and new equipment like this. These vessels will be on the front line of that fight against China. Howard Zhang and Rick Lowett in Geelong for TaiwanPlus.
Get ready to duck and cover. Natural disaster simulations are being carried out across Taiwan. As part of the country's annual Disaster Prevention Day, people are getting phone alerts and holding evacuation drills. Coastal areas will also receive test tsunami alerts. President Tsai Ing-wen has told the public not to panic.
当重大灾害发生的时候，我们会透过全面切换电视频道以及广播电台的插播机制，来发送紧急应变的讯息。
Now, do you know what to do if disaster strikes? The National Disaster Prevention Day falls on September 21st, which marks one of Taiwan's deadliest earthquakes in recent memory. To see how the country is working to keep its citizens safe, Sally Jensen went to an expo in Taipei, which shows people how to survive in the event of a catastrophe.
Fighting fires, rescuing casualties, and knowing where to hide in case of an earthquake. People here are getting prepared in case of a disaster. It's all part of National Disaster Prevention Day, which is held every year, and people are eager to brush up on their survival skills.
因为台湾有很多地震啊、台风啊、火灾啊，所以就是希望能够有安全的知识，在遇到紧急状况的之后，可以知道如何应变。
平常可能如果万一遇到的时候，至少我们会知道该怎么预防。
For the country's rescue workers, it's a chance to demonstrate the work they do.
那这边是属于就是我们当初去土耳其的时候的一些在现场做的一些处置和作为。
The event commemorates the 1999 Gigi earthquake, which killed almost 2,500 people. Taiwan sits on a seismic fault, making it vulnerable to tremors. And many of its buildings, which were built decades ago, are in poor structural condition. Now there are efforts to strengthen the youngest generation's resilience in case of the worst.
希望能够让我们的孩子在生活当中随时随地都能够帮助他人。
Children are the target audience for disaster prevention, as heat waves, floods, and other extreme weather caused by the climate crisis are on the rise.
The extreme events that can happen, that can be extremely dangerous, even now it's happening in many places in the world, but also in the future, in 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to be much impactful than it is right now.
其实我感觉从了解这个部分，我们更应该去深入到说它对整个社会的冲击。 因为社会冲击让我们更了解到说这个议题我们不能够去忽视它。
Despite the upbeat atmosphere at this event, it's hoped that participants will take these threats seriously. National Disaster Preparedness Day is an occasion to reflect on the tragedy that struck Taiwan 24 years ago. But looking to the future is an important way to equip Taiwanese people with the resources and the know-how to survive any calamity. John Su and Sally Jensen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
2 hikers have died and 9 more were injured after being swarmed by hornets on a new Taipei mountain trail on Monday. Over 50 rescue workers were dispatched to assist the group, who were attacked by over 100 Asian hornets on the Ba-Fan-Liao hiking route. 2 individuals were unresponsive. They were later pronounced dead at a local hospital. To avoid attracting dangerous insects while hiking, experts advise wearing light but not bright coloured clothes and to refrain from wearing perfumes. Migrant workers and labour unions are protesting alleged labour rights violations outside a factory owned by Taiwan's tech giant ASOS.
华硕集团，出面协商，出面协商。
The protesters are accusing the company of trying to avoid giving out severance pay to migrant workers. This comes amid rumours that ASOS subsidiary ASCII Computer is planning to close its factory in Taoyuan and move production to Vietnam. Protesters say that rather than providing redundancy pay, the company is advising employees to look for jobs elsewhere. It's World Alzheimer's Day, which raises awareness of the challenges and stigma around a disease that affects millions of people globally. In Taiwan, where the population is rapidly aging, over 300,000 people are now living with some form of dementia. Jeremy Olivier has this report.
85-year-old Yingzi was once the main cook in her family, but her ability to make their favorite dishes started to wane around 5 years ago. her relatives noticed something was wrong.
孙子全部都觉得很奇怪，说：“阿嬷，你这绿豆汤怪怪的。”然后我们也就这样赶快喝一喝啊，果然是可能掺到盐吧，所以他那个时候可能糖跟盐已经搞不清楚了。
Ing's family took her to a doctor who diagnosed her with mild dementia. She recently began taking part in community learning courses, which have helped her condition remain stable. Cases like this are increasingly common in Taiwan, which is set to become a super-age society by 2025. The health ministry says over 300,000 people in Taiwan are living with dementia, with 1 in 13 people over the age of 65 experiencing some form of it. Health authorities say that aside from medical care, it's important that Taiwan's older residents maintain an active social life.
如果能够让我们的这些的长者能够走出家里，到社区里面去，它可以降低他罹患失智的风险高达40%。
People with dementia are already covered by services under Taiwan's long-term care system. Local governments have also been promoting dementia-friendly communities, 160 of which have been set up nationwide. As Taiwan continues to grow older, it will need to keep developing and adjusting policies to better serve its aging population. Patrick Chen and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
Telefraud is very common in Taiwan, and with better AI and other digital tools, scams could get even more sophisticated. Joyce Zhang visits a startup that's working to help everyday users protect themselves.
A Taiwanese startup demonstrating its contribution to fighting rampant telefraud in the country. Though the idea behind caller ID is not new, anti-fraud technology like GoGoLooks needs to keep up with a rapidly advancing digital world. With the rise of generative AI and deepfakes, scammers are constantly getting new tools to commit even more sophisticated frauds.
When faking stuff becomes so easy, right? Trust is even more valuable. Our vision is to empower people on the internet to trust with each other, even at the first glance.
Telefraud is common in Taiwan, and not just through phone calls, but also via messaging apps. Between 2019 and 2021, the number of mobile fraud cases exceeded 71,000, with victims losing almost $45 million.
Taiwan is a high-tech island, so that also provides a very good soil for these criminals.
People have even been trafficked to other countries through phone and messaging scams on promises of lucrative jobs. It's gotten to a point where the government has added audio warnings to incoming international calls. Equipping users with the right information to confidently and safely interact in a digital world is this startup's goal. So they've also shared their technology with Taiwan's police, and their software has been commended by President Tsai Ing-wen.
Technology itself probably is neutral, right? So the problem is like who uses it, is a good guy or bad guy.
Ensuring public safety is no easy feat in a rapidly evolving digital world. Though they won't be seen patrolling the streets, software engineers like the ones at this startup are keeping a watchful eye and doing what they can to equip everyday users with the latest necessary defenses. Andy Xue and Joyce Sen for TaiwanPlus.
Stay with us here on TaiwanPlus. We'll have more of the day's top stories after the break, including...
What is Taiwan doing to show its commitment to its allies?
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has warned of possible military collaboration between North Korea and Russia. Here's what he said during his speech at the United Nations General Assembly.
또 북한이 러시아에 재래식 무기를 지원하는 대가로 WMD 능력 강화에 필요한 정보와 기술을 얻게 된다면 러시아와 북한 군사 거래는 우크라이나뿐만 아니라 대한민국의 안보와 평화를 직접적으로 겨냥한 도발이 될 것입니다.
Yoon's comments come shortly after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Russia. The two vowed to enhance military ties. South Korea's president also addressed extreme weather events caused by the climate crisis. He pledged to increase funding to help developing nations reduce carbon emissions and transition to renewable energy. India has stopped processing visas in Canada. It's the latest sign of strained ties between the countries after Ottawa accused New Delhi of plotting the murder of a Canadian Sikh activist. Stash Butler reports.
Uncertainty on the streets of Amritsar, the holiest city for India's Sikh minority. Their community of over 20 million people now finding itself in the middle of a diplomatic row after a Sikh separatist was killed in Canada.
सॉल्यूशन मिलके बैठ के बात करनी चाहिए सब तो बेसिकली यही चीज़ है कि अगर दोनों ही एडमेंट हो जाएंगे तो फिर तो नेचुरली कोई इसका कोई हल नहीं निकल पाएगा.
The tension centres on this man, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a campaigner for an independent Sikh homeland in India. He was shot dead in June outside a Sikh cultural centre on the outskirts of Vancouver. Canada now says it suspects the Indian government was involved in the murder.
Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty.
Trudeau's statement sparked anger on Indian streets and in the highest levels of the government, which denies the allegations and accuses Canada of harbouring Sikh terrorists. India is now warning its citizens in Canada of politically condoned hate crimes and criminal violence.
Sir. Camera, sir. Sir. Sir, Nixon death pe speaking.
And after Canada expelled an Indian diplomat, New Delhi has responded in kind, a move that received cross-party support.
I think it's unfortunate that Canada chose such a public route. If at all they have an issue, these matters should be discussed privately with a friendly government like India, and matters should be discussed behind closed doors.
Coming less than 2 weeks after India hosted the G20 Leaders Summit, the row is a headache for Canada's Western allies, who see India as a key partner for countering China's growing influence. And for India's Sikh community, some of whom back the fight for an independent homeland called Khalistan, the lack of clarity about what happened is unsettling.
Either is it the Khalistan issue, or is it the actual Indian government is involved in killing of a Canadian citizen? So till now we are not able to know what is the right news it is, or what are the facts.
With no sign of a resolution to the case, the killing of a Sikh far from home threatens to shake established alliances and take the gleam off India's long-sought rise on the global diplomatic stage. Devin Tsai and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
Earlier this year, France passed a law that for the first time included a section committing Paris to defending freedom of navigation in the Indo-Pacific, including the Taiwan Strait. TaiwanPlus reporter Louise Watt sat down with the French senator who pushed for that inclusion. Olivier Cadic, the vice president of the French Senate's Permanent Committee on Foreign Affairs and Defense Issues, was visiting Taiwan's outlying islands of Penghu as well as Taipei.
As you say, you went to the pescadores, Penghu, and you said you wanted to speak to the people there. What did you say to them?
It was important, I think, to explain to them maybe we are far away in Europe from Taiwan Strait. But I thought it was really important to let them know that it's not because we are far that we don't think about them. We can't accept that an international place is turned as a Chinese place just because they decide it. They have to respect international law, even China. So, too many times, people are afraid to, I would say, give the impression that they may hurt China.
What do you say about standing up to China will be music to the Taiwan government's ears? But how much support is there in France and the European Union for standing up to China?
2 years ago, when you looked at the number of senators who were in a French-China friendship group, there were 42 2 years ago. French-Taiwan, we were 20. How many are we 2 years later? 42. 42, 42. We renew half of Senate this Sunday. We'll see how many will be with the next Senate.
France, though, has a good trading relationship with China. And we saw what happened to Lithuania, for example, when it decided to have closer relations with Taiwan. China cut off trade, it downgraded its diplomatic relationship with Lithuania. How worried are you about China's reaction?
Last May, President Macron talked to French people about Choose France to get investment, foreign investment in France. The first company mentioned was Prologium, Taiwanese company, who decided to invest 5.5 billion euros in France. This unique investment from Prologium is exactly 50% of all Chinese investment in France since 25 years. You know, I think that China needs more Europe than Europe needs China. We don't have to be afraid of China.
That was Olivier Cadic, the Vice President of the French Senate's Permanent Committee on Foreign Affairs and Defence Issues, talking to Louise Watt. For many in Paraguay, healthcare has long been difficult to access, but now hospitals in the South American country are getting a helping hand from a friend on the other side of the world, Taiwan. Sally Jensen has more.
Paraguay is one of Latin America's poorest countries, with around a quarter of its people living in poverty. And in a country beset by inequality, access to healthcare has for years been one of the biggest social divisions.
Luego, el sistema de salud que llega a otro 60% de la población en muy malas condiciones y un sector privado que no alcanza el 10% y que cubre solamente a los sectores más ricos.
For many here, hospital wait times were long a major obstacle when seeking treatment, as much of the administration was done on paper. But things are changing thanks to a diplomatic ally that happens to be a leader in tech. Paraguay is the only country in South America to have ties with Taiwan. All the others officially recognize China, which sees Taiwan as part of its territory. Left with only 13 allies across the world, Taiwan offers them its assistance in the form of scholarships, investments in small and medium firms, and medical and technological aid. In Paraguay, that meant installing a computerized integrated system for hospitals. Known as the HIS project for Hospital Information System, it keeps track of patients' medical records, expedites prescriptions, and monitors drug stocks.
Podemos decir que es el único país de la región que tiene así un sistema ya integrado donde todos los hospitales públicos tienen como objetivo implementar el mismo sistema, ¿verdad?
HIS started just as Paraguay was reeling from the pandemic. In the 2 years since, it now covers around half the country's population, and project surveys show patients have noticed the difference.
Una seguridad que tenés que llegar al hospital, ¿verdad? Que salir de tu casa y llegas al hospital vas a ser atendida y vas a conseguir los medicamentos que necesitas, cosa que antes no había.
The success of the project is one reason Paraguay's new president, Santiago Peña, says he intends to keep ties with Taiwan. On a recent trip to Paraguay, Taiwan's vice president and presidential hopeful Lai Ching-te stressed the importance of the two nations' ties.
在深化民主自由人权方面，能够有更多的合作，特别是产业或是经贸 甚至于教育、文化、科技等等，其实我们都可以进行实质的交流。
And Taiwan intends to further expand these exchanges for the wider international community to see what it has to offer. China has been trying to win over Taiwan's remaining allies with big investments and access to its huge market. But this has not deterred the small island nation from showing it remains committed to the friends who stay. And for those in Paraguay, that commitment is making a difference. Scott Huang and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
2 concerts commemorating a century of Taiwanese movies are set to take place in Taipei. The shows are a tribute to the 60th Golden Horse Awards. 20 orchestras will take turns performing 60 songs from classic Taiwanese films, accompanied by movie clips. The concerts are free to attend and will also be live-streamed online. Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. Remember to download the Taiwan Plus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally today, we leave you with images of a kiteboarding competition in the Netherlands. I'm Kavat. Take care. See you next time.